I'm gonna tell you all the secrets of the grid snap. Building in Fortnite Creative can be super frustrating sometimes. You see all these pros out there building these amazing things, and you have no idea how they've done it. I'm gonna tell you today that the main thing that separates the pros from the noobs is the ability to use grid snap effectively. So I'm gonna teach you all about build to prop, grid snap, and I'm even gonna answer the question as to why sometimes these things don't line up perfectly. This problem drives me crazy as a map maker. I finally figured out why this happens. So if you're a new builder or even a pro, I suggest watching this video so that you can improve your builds. Let's go. Okay, first I'm gonna start really basic so that beginners can know what I'm talking about. And then I'm gonna get a little bit more complex in answering some of the deepest questions about grid snap. So first we've got to talk about build to prop. Right here, you're gonna see this thing called options. I'm on mouse and keyboard. So right here it says B. When I hit B, it brings up these options. If you're on console or if you're on mobile, it's going to be something different. But luckily creative mode gives you a little bit of a guidance to show you what the button is. So once you pull this option menu up, you're gonna see here right above me is building to prop. Right now it is on so that when I pull out a wall or something, you can see I can place it wherever I want. It is now treating this wall as a prop. If I turn that off, then when I pull out a wall, you'll see that's going to snap to the grid. So you can see here, this is the grid. Creative mode's given us these nice lines to help us know exactly where things are going to place. So when building the prop is off, I can never place on anything that isn't on one of those lines. So if you're a beginner builder, building with build to prop off is going to be good because you can do some really cool things and building is going to be a lot quicker and it's going to feel more familiar to you if you've played Battle Royale. Now, I'm going to come back to building the prop off in a little bit to show you some advanced tricks on building with that mode. Even the pro builders should be using building to prop off a lot. Okay, now I'm going to explain to you grid snap. So if you pull open your options above building to prop, you're going to see grid snap. And as you scroll through this, you're going to see different numbers. You can have grid snap off at 1, at 2, all the way up to 32. Now, let me explain what that means. So I've pulled out a wall here. Now you're going to see these grids on the piece. Right now I have grid snap 32 on, but I'm going to change it to 1 just so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm on grid snap 1 right now, and you'll see right here there's also a shortcut to changing your grid snap. So for me it's the letter V. Notice where the green lines are. So on grid snap 1 there is one line in the middle, and you can see here that as my guy is moving, that the piece is moving a full block on the grid. So when I place it down, it makes it really easy to line this up. And same thing this way, it's moving a full block. So watch here what happens when I change my grid snap. So right now it's on 1, but then I move to 32. You can see those green lines have moved away. Then it goes down. You see how the grid is changing. This is 8, this is 4, that is 2, that is 1. This is showing you, so you remember with 1, I was moving a full block as my guy moved. And now at 2, it's moving every half block. So at grid 1, it's moving a full block. At grid 2, it's moving a half block. At grid snap 4, it's moving a quarter block. At grid snap 16, then it's a 16th of a block, all the way up to 32, which is now moving every 1/32 of a block. So it's very small, and you'll see the actual grid on the pieces, so it can kind of help you line it up. So here it is at 16. You can see there I place it down, and now I can grid snap it wherever I want. So then it's up to the builder to choose what grid snap you want to use. When you're using grid snap 1, it makes it really easy to snap pieces together, but you can't be very precise. The higher the grid snap, the more precise you can be. You'll see here at 32, I can now place them really close together to create different effects or pieces that I want. Now that I've explained to you the basics of grid snap, I want to talk to you about something that's bothered me for a long time, and I finally discovered the answer to this question. So I'm going to place 2 walls down here, and this is on grid snap 16, and you'll see here how easy it is for me to line these up so that it's nice and flush. But then if I add something else into this build, so let's say I place a prop down, but then I want to copy and paste all this stuff. When I pull it off and try to line it up again, it's impossible to line it up perfectly. You'll see it's just that far off, and it's impossible for me to get that to line up while there's that extra prop in there. But as soon as I take that prop out of there, it lines up just right. So this becomes a big issue when you're copying and pasting like a big wall with a bunch of props on it, and you want to copy it everywhere. It's gonna throw off the grid snap because this was placed down on a different plane. I've had that struggle all the time, and I'm like, why isn't things lining up? It's because I have multiple props selected, maybe even placed on a different grid snap. So maybe this was placed using grid snap 32, and that was placed using grid snap 16. So when I'm copying it now, what is it choosing to place it under? And it's gonna throw it all off, and it's gonna be impossible to line up. You can see here, that's just barely off. That is so frustrating as a builder. And I never really understood it till I just stopped to think about why isn't it not lining up because different props are set under different grid snaps, and the engine is struggling to figure out which one it's placing under. So my recommendation here, guys, is if you want things to really line up first, you got to make sure it's all on the same grid snap. So you have to remember, I placed this down under grid snap 32 or 16 or whatever it was, and then when you pick it back up, make sure you're using the same grid snap. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Now I want to talk about resizing things. So for some reason, the resizing is kind of strange. So right now I'm going to resize the width one space. So there's one space, and then so when I put this down, it's going to make it harder to line this up now because I've resized it one. You can see there's no exact spacing for this because I've resized it, and now there's this little gap here. So you're gonna notice whenever I'm streaming or building that I'm counting a lot. So when I resize, I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the reason I'm counting in increments of 5 is because the grid snap is on increments of 5. So now that I've resized this to 5, you can see it is half the size of a normal block. So now that when I'm lining it up, it lines up perfect. Now this may not matter as much with flat things, but as soon as you pull in a curved piece like this, then the resizing matters a lot. So if I make this curved piece even one bit smaller, then lining it up is virtually impossible. You see, I can't line this up perfectly. It's gonna overlap, and while it looks good there, as soon as I start to try and line it up this way, it's gonna become almost impossible. You know, you can get it close, but it's not gonna be perfect. But when I resize in increments of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then placing it down is very simple, and then I just rotate it a little bit, and then you can see here how easily it just lines up. Boom, and then the final piece, look, oh, it is perfect. And then you have this perfectly round thing with like no mistakes on it. So it's all about the increment of 5 if you're trying to resize things to fit perfectly on grid. Which brings me back to building to prop off. Let's say I wanted to build like this little like archway coming out. Maybe I put some pillars down underneath it, you know, something simple like this. But I want to make a room with a bunch of these on it. But now I have like multiple props lining up with this wall. Now I'm going to turn my building to prop off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of these things. And if you don't know how to copy, guys, make sure when you pull out your phone, you can see all of your commands right here. You're going to see the command here that says R. That is the select tool for me, and it might be something different for you if you are on PC, console, or mobile. But now that I have my building to prop off and I've selected all these things, now they're all going to build to prop off together. So here we go, watch. Now you can see here, it's snapping to the grid. Now we've got this really nice room that is just copied and pasted perfectly, and it all lines up just right. Yeah, there's some visual glitch happening here. You can see some copied and some didn't. That's just some weird, I don't know what's going on with that. But in theory, this should work. You can see it works some of the time. But that's how you could really use build to prop off to really have a cool room and build things really quickly. So now it's up to you guys to really decide what grid snap you want to be using. The 32 grid snap is a beautiful thing, but when you're trying to place big objects, maybe 32 isn't just right. Maybe you want to be using grid snap 2. So that way you can line things up just right and have a little space in between it, but it's not going to take so much precision for you to really place it down. So that's one thing I've been trying to do lately, is really select my grid snap and my building to prop on or off wisely so that I can really build things quickly and efficiently. And if you can master the grid snap and the building to prop option, your builds will be so much better and you'll be able to build so much quicker. So hopefully this helped you out, guys. If you have any more tips on grid snap and building to prop, let me know in the comments below.